Hi, I'm Sarah.
And I'm Rena, and welcome to
Biopic, a podcast story. This is a podcast where we dissect the good, bad, ugly, and absurd of this specific genre of motion picture, the biopic. If you want to learn more about us, our scoring system, and how we choose movies, please check out our special introductory episode titled Introduction, Who Are We and What Are We Doing?
Sarah. What movie are we doing this week?
This week, we will be talking about the 1973 original version of Walking Tall, the story of Sheriff Buford Pusser. You just have a bunch of angry emoticons here in the script.
I have the green face that looks like it's about to be sick, about 20 of that, and then I have about 15 of the puking emoji, and then another row of the green one, more of the puke, more of the green one, then just angry face, then the angry face. I only have about 4 of this. I should have added more of the angry face where it has puffs of smoke coming out of its nose, followed by the slightly paler orange angry face that has like the cuss word things over its mouth, followed by just like a mildly mad face, followed by 30 skulls.
So you got yourself so angry about watching this that you got sick and died? Is that what you are suggesting?
Yeah, I got sick and then mad and then more kinds of mad and then I died. You urged Walking Tall on me, Sarah, despite it being on a short list of movies that I listed under on our 1,000+ film doc that we've been building out over the past year and a half of this podcast. I listed both versions of Walking Tall under films we are never doing unless someone pays us $10,000 each with no strings attached, regardless of what sources we use for research. Not only are we giving Walking Tall away for free, despite my stipulations about the conditions under which I would do this movie, I didn't even get a Chanel bag out of it.
I'm not about to apologize, and certainly not for a film whose tagline is, quote, "His most powerful weapon is the truth."
I had the names, I'm going to mispronounce his name over and over again, out of contempt. I had the names Buford Pusser and Bull Connor confused in my head for a number of years. I might have thought they were the same person, but I'm not really sure. I guess to try to figure it out as we were going into this, I Googled racist Southern sheriff, but that brought up another thing entirely. And this movie claims that Buford Pusser was not racist.
There is some fact to back up among his few decent human qualities is that there doesn't seem to be any indication that he was like super racist. That is probably going to be the last nice thing I say about him. You are right to feel contempt.
Anyway, I had him confused with Bull Connor, but that wasn't even the first name that shows up on Google when you search for racist Southern sheriff.
Rena, can you give us the trigger warning?
This movie contains depictions of and/or references to violence, stupidity, bad acting, bad writing, uncreative shirts, and Sansabelt slacks.
Yep.
Big sticks. Casual racism, explicit racism, one black friend, homemade bats, shotguns, woman getting shot in the face, cardboard walled establishments, sex trailers, quote unquote, white slavery, characters we don't like being left on the side of the road to die 3 times, sex work, illogical bullet holes in the walls, comically bad cast, bad injury makeup, child actors, no makeup, dog murder, people being heroically shot in the back, unsustainable town economics, small towns, kangaroo courts, 70s station wagons, allegations of professional wrestling being fake, lies, and more lies, bullies, professional wrestling moves used effectively in law enforcement, head injuries, overacting, underacting, implications of sex with Joe Don Baker, sweat, grease, moonshining, cars exploding, gambling, revenge tours, the Dixie Mafia, widely varying Southern accents, Bing Crosby's name in the credits as a producer, the musical stylings of Johnny Mathis, and Gingham. I can't have left anything out. That had a whole pause in the middle.
I'm sure you did, actually. Rena, can you give us a spoiler warning?
Spoiler warning. We are going to spoil everything, including possibly the major plot points in works of narrative art, having nothing to do with this particular movie. Consider yourself warned.
So just a few of the sources used in this episode include, and are absolutely not limited to, Behind the Bastards did a 2-part series on Buford Pusser, the Going South podcast, which is outstanding, Southern-focused true crime podcast, the Facebook page Buford Pusser, The Other Story, which led me to a lot of other coverage. I know what a cesspool Facebook is, but the man who created this page is a man named Mike Elam. He has dedicated a lot of energy and time and shoe leather to dissecting Buford Pusser's legacy, which I gotta say is fucking weird and speaks to that strange time in our society that was the end of the Vietnam War. Everybody was broken and bad things happen when you're broken. That Facebook page is just a wealth of media coverage that I dug into like crazy and was really interesting. First of all, I want to be clear, I am not going to argue any auteur theory with this film. What we take away and what we take in is always a reflection on what is happening around us, both good and bad, and it's all happening at once. So this is to say that some of us need simple shit at the end of Vietnam. Some of the entertainment that came about as a result of the Vietnam era and that national trauma is among the best that we have. I'm thinking about like The Conversation, Taxi Driver, The French Connection, all movies that are about like this shifting morality, the lack of a happy ending, really complex heroes who lie and cheat and steal and do bad things. And Walking Tall wants very badly to be the opposite of that, like on the dirty, hairy end of the scale. Like one dude can go in and clean shit up. And now we know what we know about Buford Pusser, which I'm going to get into. It's even more a product of that time and mirroring that time because it's a legend built on lies. I have listened to so many interviews with people who sound like they were born underneath a pack of cigarettes. Just old people talking about Buford Pusser and the Dixie Mafia over the last week and a half. You're welcome.
Why? Why do this to yourself?
Because I wanted to come to the table with information this week for a change.
Because there's no way that I would have ever agreed to do a lick of research on Buford Pusser.
Yes, it would have upset you.
It's not in my wheelhouse.
Yeah, this is not escapist.
Sarah, can you please tell us a little bit about Buford Pusser and the 1973 film Walking Tall?
I'd be happy to. And as I mentioned, his real story and the movie are two very different things. Buford Hayes Pusser was born December 12th, 1937. He died August 21st, 1974. He was an American police officer and politician who served as the sheriff of McNairy County, Tennessee, from 1964 to 1970, and then became the constable of Adamsville, his hometown, from 1970 to 1972. His time serving these communities not only inspired this film, but several songs, books, and movies. And he was also a wrestler known as Buford the Bull in like the Mid-South League. This is before WWF and then E became a thing. So it was the loosey-goosey dark days of pro wrestling. So he grew up and went to school in Adamsville. He enlisted in the Marines for 3 whole months after he graduated high school. And then he became a mortician's assistant, and he met his wife, Pauline, when he was being Buford the Bull. They got married, returned to Adamsville, and then through a series of events, he became the sheriff. I will not get into all of the details, but it involves like moving back and forth between Chicago and Adamsville a few times. As soon as he became sheriff, He promptly began trying to eliminate the Dixie Mafia and the State Line Mob, the loosely affiliated group of people who came to the South rather than dying in the North. He survived several alleged assassination attempts. And most famously on January 2nd, he was shot 3 times by an unidentified gunman while he was in the car with his wife, Pauline, who was also shot in the head and then died. This really built the legend. Someone wrote a book called The 12th of August, which became this film. In 1974, he died doing what he loved most, which was driving drunk and too fast. At about 135 miles per hour, which I find that fucking terrifying. His headstone in the Adamsville area cemetery reads, "He walked tall." His legacy is bizarre and almost messianic. The whole town of Adamsville is pretty much dedicated to his memory. His name is everywhere. It is on streets. It is on buildings. It is on the water tower. It used to be on their police cars. I will make as valiant an attempt to debunk things throughout this episode because, and it's going to be difficult because this is a very rich tapestry of bullshit. Like, to revive something that we haven't talked about in a little bit, like, this is a Jesus riding on a dinosaur away from being like complete fiction.
The experience of watching like small town folksy homespun anything fills me with a level of scorn where it takes a supreme level of effort on my part for me to not roll around on the floor gagging until it's over. And when I was not agape at the sheer awfulness of this movie, I was laughing hysterically. Sarah, please tell us about the movie Walking Tall.
It is from 1973, as I mentioned. It is described as a neo-noir biographical vigilante action film.
Can John Garfield come back and just slay the ass of whoever? No, neo-noir? That is an insult to noir.
I would not call it a neo-noir by any means. It is like hillbilly exploitation, I think.
I want everyone who ever actually made good noir to haunt anyone involved in this movie in the afterlife and just constantly whoop their asses.
If it resembles anything, it's kind of like a Peckinpah movie without the style.
Peckinpah knew how to position a camera so that stuff looked good. This movie does not know this.
I'm thinking on the level of like it shares the commonality of being like dirty and sweaty and disgusting to look at and like devoid of any value of human life, despite sort of protesting throughout that it is actually like a life affirming film. It's an unpleasant viewing experience. So it stars Jodan Baker. This was really his breakout role. He had done like some Westerns before this, but this really made him who he became. And this was a huge hit. This was a $500,000 budget, and it made $40 million at the box office. Like that's like those are like porno numbers. Like to clear like how much money like that's like the ratio that Deep Throat profited at. So like everyone feel bad right now. So just to give you a little bit more background about why we're doing this is that a friend of the show, Dan, shared with me that Buford Pusser's entire personal history was under investigation. And he sent me an article and asked if we'd ever do Walking Tall. And just to further demonstrate what kind of person I am, I own a box set of the Walking Tall original films. So I was like, of course I want to do this episode. I completely forgot that this was on that list. So yeah, so she said, if I did all the research and did all the work, then we could do it. And I was like, that's fine. It's always been kind of interesting to me. It was clear that there was at least a little bit of bullshit in it even before all of this started happening. And there are a bunch of things about this movie that are irresistible to me, like including the presence of Bruce Glover, bootlegging, Southern cops, relaxed fit shirts, producers whose parenting is at least partially responsible for half of their children committing suicide. Like, all of those things are interesting to me.
Yeah, Bing Crosby sounds like a terrible person, and Walking Tall makes me feel like I don't belong in the United States of America. Just knowing it exists makes me feel like I don't belong here, and the idea that it was a hit furthers that. I am filled, after seeing this movie, but before it as well, with the conviction that ICE may deport me on the grounds that the contempt that I feel for Walking Tall is un-American, even though I, my parents, all of my grandparents, and half of my great-grandparents were born in this country. Based on my attitude towards Walking Tall, ICE should probably barge into my apartment, handcuff me, take me on the first bus bound for Venezuela, ask, hey, did anyone on this deportation bus like the movie Walking Tall, and put me in the seat of whoever raises their hand first, and let that person go because they are more American than me.
If we're at the place where we're expelling elites, I will be holding up my box set of Walking Tall to protect myself. And I do think that you engaged in some contempt prior to investigation. How dare you suggest that the stories of amateur wrestlers turned bully sheriffs, praised for decades by the silent majority, are less important than your coastal elites and their fancy frocks with their fancy book learning and your Plantagenets and whatnot. This is the story of a true American hero, a criminal who stood up to other criminals and got away with murdering his wife while being lionized by the media. Being able to get away with murdering your wife is the American dream. I am grateful that the American dream is also about building out a digital media presence dedicated to debunking the fake heroics of an asshole. Because of all of this, this is maybe the most American movie ever made. A terrible person lies and cheats and steals, makes up his own myth. Everyone believes it and ignores inconvenient facts. He's a huge hero. He's about to play himself in his own movie when he dies. And then years later, everyone's like, oh, wait, we screwed up. And then some people are like, it seems too difficult to change our thinking, so we should just let it go. And that's America. We love pretending that we like standing up for what's right narratives in this country, because what we actually like is having a super cool alleged pedophile president who makes AI videos showing him dumping poop on other Americans. And just FYI, I'm never getting over that. So it's gonna come up a lot. Ultimately, this movie reminds me of the line from Blazing Saddles of, what did you expect? Welcome, Sonny, make yourself at home, marry my daughter. You've got to remember that these are just simple farmers. These are people of the land, the common clay of the New West. Morons. But with all this said, let's talk about the movie. So we open on an ugly car driving through really unpleasant scenes. And I want to be clear, I don't find the American Southeast ugly. Two movies just off the top of my head, At Close Range and Elizabethtown, that photograph the American Southeast very beautifully. But this movie is one of the most unpleasant and hideous looking movies ever. It has the artistic flair of a snuff film.
As the movie opens, I see a moving car with children in it, and I hate this movie already. Every shot is artlessly composed, and everything looks ugly. This is one of the ugliest films I've ever seen.
The movie gives us the upfront of saying that this is suggested by events rather than, things that are completely reinterpreted to make Buford Pusser look like a hero. And
I don't understand, why bother writing a book about him in the first place? It's just one town.
The best analogs are super unfortunate and would be like a Sheriff Joe Arpaio, where like people were delighted by this I make my own rules kind of guy who was out busting heads. So he managed to create a presence for himself before this happened, before his wife was shot. And then that really enhanced the legend of a man who was willing to give up everything, including his wife, who was his property, apparently, and nothing else, in order to, quote, do the right thing. There was a time when you could just say stuff and it could be true because there was no internet. And there was no blowback. So conversely, if Mike Wallace got on top of it, he could shame you and ruin your life with one 60-minute story. Like, this was a time to be alive. We also see here Elizabeth Hartman, who is way too talented to be in this movie.
She's almost good in parts of this, but one of the things we notice about her, like, she is not wearing any makeup. Nobody in this movie wears makeup except for women who are playing sex workers and that lady running one of the crime bars. I think they're going for fresh-faced, but people are constantly sweating and red in the face, and everyone's skin looks bad.
This is a very specific reference. In the 1989 Tim Burton Batman, there's a sequence where the Joker has poisoned all of the cosmetics in Gotham City, and if you use them in a certain combination, it will kill you. The newscasters are going on TV without anything done to them, and they all look terrible and shiny. And that's what everyone in this movie looks like. Elizabeth Hartman was a super talented actress who also struggled with debilitating mental health issues. She was in A Patch of Blue and was nominated for an Oscar for that with Sidney Poitier. She was in The Beguiled, the Clint Eastwood one, and was really wonderful in that. She had the, if I recall correctly, she was the Kirsten Dunst role from the Sofia Coppola one. She worked sporadically and then would ultimately take her own life in the 80s. She was really talented. It's kind of a bummer to see her in a movie like this when she should have been working with Coppola at this point, and she's working with Jordan Baker in this garbage party. And so they're honking the horn like crazy as they're arriving. It seems like vagabonds driving around the country with a trailer that says Buford the Bull on it. And they're arriving back at his parents' house because they're going to settle down again in this town of Adamsville and make a life now that he's ready to retire from the wrestling dream.
What was the wrestling dream before WWE?
It was grim. I think it was like you were hoping that like Jerry Lawler was going to identify you, which according to Buford Pusser at one point have a relationship with Jerry Lawler, or like the Iron Claw guy. You were hoping that like some impresario was going to attach to you and you were going to be able to like eke out a living on the road until you died of the complications of head trauma, I guess. Most of the actors in this movie who are not underacting are kind of like extras from a Hee Haw episode. Everyone besides Jordan Baker, who is wearing his uniform of a loose-fitting top and Dacron pants, everyone else was dressed up to travel, which I thought would make you happy.
That did sort of make me happy. Elizabeth Hartman has on a very nice, it's kind of like a wine-colored skirt with an interesting lacing detail around the waistband.
Yeah, I liked that.
And there's a couple times in the film where she wears like these very nice, crisp-looking shirt dresses that I liked.
Yes.
I don't know how someone working on this movie 3 times actually made a tasteful wardrobe pick, but it happened.
Maybe she brought her own stuff.
That's possible, since it fits her really well, but that dress got bled all over. So
yeah.
There had to have been multiple versions of it.
Yeah, I guess there was a budget to buy that one dress. And like already here, like, because we'll get into it, like Buford Pusser was not a great husband or life partner. They're talking about his decision to finally retire from wrestling. And there's already these overtones of like him being like vaguely abusive and controlling here, but it's played off as folksy and charming. And we see that he's the decision maker because like at a certain point she's like, can we please leave? And he's all, no, I have to walk tall. And then she gets murdered because of his stubborn commitment to his ethics, which are also bullshit. And and we're walking through the house and seeing all of his stuff, and he's supposed to be 25 here. Like, this is one of those, like, people aged differently back in the day things. Someone reached a certain age back in the 70s where they just immediately turned into a middle manager from Singer Link with a short sleeve dress shirt and pocket protector. Basically, like, all men looked like Ted Cruz.
Oh, boy.
Back in the day when they turned, like, 35. And yes, that is an insult to everyone.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's supposed to be 25 here. And it's just like a kind of old 25 that we don't see anymore. Like, again, like the lack of makeup, like there's just like sweat dripping off of him and like staining his shirt. And he has like a hickey or something on his neck. Like, it's just a bad.
Well, this is the first point where we see a shirt design that will haunt us throughout the film, which is
relaxed fit.
It's this shirt that doesn't unbutton all the way down. It's like, it's a solid shirt and it's woven, but it kind of has a placket in the front that unbuttons. And he never puts on a uniform once he becomes sheriff. He always wears pretty much only this shirt. The material definitely looks too thick for the South. He has it in lots of different colors, and it doesn't make any sense.
It's quite upsetting, like the fashion, because he's wearing different pieces of a leisure suit, but they're not matching. And the shirt is confusing because it's untucked, but it's meant to be untucked, but it also, like, he looks sloppy all the time. He looks like the kind of person he should be arresting in this movie.
It's also, like, what do you think the fiber content is on this shirt? Because it looks like it should be ironed, but it also looks like it would melt from an iron.
You don't want to take a wet iron to that shirt because it will melt. If you struck a match next to that shirt, it would turn into a ball of plastic.
If you bury it, it will take 200 years to biodegrade, but it won't actually biodegrade. It will just release microplastics into the groundwater. It might outlast Twinkies, but it wouldn't outlast Keith Richards.
Like, and the music is very like loud and maudlin also in this movie. And he's talking to his dad, and his dad makes a funny mention of something that ironically happens later, where he's talking about this house that's now for sale. He says, gasoline and white lightning don't mix. And it's like, yeah, Buford Pusser's going to learn that hard in 1974. This movie also shares a similar editing style to Academy Award-winning editing from Bohemian Rhapsody, where there's a lot of like cutting back and forth frantically in conversations. Like, there's no two shots in this movie. There's a lot of back and forth single shots. And we also see here that Leif Garrett is one of the children, and also his sister, his real life sister, is playing his sister in this. We find out also that he has sold the trailer, and everybody's so happy. And we see them going to church, and the mom ominously says, like, there's been some changes around town since he left, but nothing that they need to worry about.
And this is the ugliest church I've ever seen. Just like this fake red brick brutalist reconception of like a federal columns building. But what I realized was that I suppose part of this movie's hook is that he's a pro wrestler, so he's going to use pro wrestling moves to fight crime.
Mm-hmm. So this person shows up named Loogie. who is a
Like
friend
the
of
thing
his.
that you hack it, the phlegm thing that you hack
Yes.
up. Okay.
Yes. I mean, I'm not sure if that's the origin of his nickname. I'm assuming it's not his Christian name. I mean, who knows, really? And this guy is about as subtle as a like community theater performer in Lil Abner. He is quite broad, and he's all hee haw and oh shucksing about how he's going to take Buford out for some fun. And they drive to this state line row of businesses. We go to a part of town that is filled with very crappy looking buildings and shitty looking American cars and trailers for prostitution.
And at this point, we wondered, like, this town looks pretty small. The buildings are spread out. There's not that many of them. So we don't understand how this town is able to sustain the vibrant and plentiful crime scene that we see happening here.
I have information on this.
Okay.
This fine nation of ours, America, has had a really fucked up history around the sale and distribution and consumption of alcohol, which I know no one's ever heard about. But this literally continued into our lifetime. I am not an expert on this. I have watched the Ken Burns documentary on Prohibition, and I have also seen Smokey and the Bandit, and can say with some confidence that the insanity of America's liquor and beer laws, his entire career is predicated on these and on deriving humor and drama from them. Like Smokey and the Bandit is all about trying to sneak Coors Light across the Mississippi River, where it wasn't allowed to go until 1986 because of pasteurization laws. Also, Smokey and the Bandit is a really fun movie that has a theme song that, like this film's, explains everything about the movie in it. So all the people you see in these scenes, these rough-looking establishment owners who are all probably 35 years old, just again, because people aged differently back in the day, they are known as members of the Dixie Mafia or the State Line Mafia. So Tennessee and Mississippi were both not supposed to sell hard liquor, but Mississippi was a lot more lax on it. So these kinds of establishments would show up right on the state line, and they were hot shit and filled with white cis male vice of all kinds. So these places ultimately draw from all over the state and not just McNairy County. So that's that. And this establishment looks like it's made out of cardboard.
It does indeed. Every building in this movie looks like it's made out of cardboard.
It's so the destruction can be very easy. Spoiler alert. There are so many hookers in this parking lot. And you noted here about we cut in immediately on a shaking ass in pink terry cloth.
Yeah, it is just the tackiest ass I've ever seen.
It's also...
And it's also, terry cloth will make you sweat worse, and everyone in this town already sweats so much.
The middle of the day.
Yeah.
Which, I guess, people drink in the middle of the day. So anyway, he immediately, gets propositioned by this woman and is she's like, are you Tarzan, Superman, or King Kong? And she is wearing a shirt. It's not a shirt. It's not even, I was going to say it's like a piece of tissue paper, but tissue paper offers some modesty.
It's like nylon stocking made into a shirt.
Yeah.
Barely.
And her breasts are just there.
Yeah, she's about a B cup, perky, and you can see the full nipple.
Oh, they're gorgeous, but yeah, it's just it is.
And she is also the only woman in this movie who gets to wear competently applied makeup.
Yes. And Loogie is a gambling junkie giving a coked up performances, and he's like, let's go gamble. And so
it's so stupid.
Yeah, it is. Here's the thing, there's no gaming commission overseeing this state line mafia. You're not guaranteed to have a fair shake. Some of these people do look like extras from Casino, And then some of them look like they came straight from church. Like, it's a very weird fashion energy happening in here. And Buford sees that they're about to cheat Loogie out of his money. And he starts a scene, and it's like a record scratch moment where immediately the room clears out and a fight starts between him and a bunch of the people running this bar. And like, there's just, it's a very pathetic fight. There's a lot of like, yeah, like wrestling moves. Like it feels like, you know, we saw some of the clips of John Holmes doing stunt work, and it's not dissimilar to that. Like,
I am miserable as this is going on. I am so miserable experiencing this film.
I should add too, like, there's a whole like thug economy happening in this town also. Like, we have like a Gotham City's worth of henchmen working for the bad guys. Like, there's just like no, like, an inexhaustible supply of minor characters willing to be in fights with Buford Pusser throughout this film. So just some more history here. This is based on more or less a family called the Halfcocks. Yeah. They're all just like a bunch of career criminals and hard-living people. So the Loogie part of this story happened more or less, but it actually happened to Buford. He went to one of these bars one night before he became sheriff through the series of events, and he started a fight because he felt like he got ripped off by a, you know, like gambling establishment ruled by no one. And they did like cut him up and leave him by the side of the road for dead, because that's kind of like a thing that they would do. Loogie, like, he just disappears out of the movie and then out of our lives. But they cut up Buford and leave him for dead on the side of the road, as was their way.
I didn't realize he just disappears.
Well, no, he does die, but he doesn't die until Buford goes on trial. Yeah. So this did happen to Buford, and the events under which it happened were probably way sketchier than they were in this movie, like, and less honorable. And we see Buford like laying in a puddle on the side of a road waiting for a car to finally pick him up. We see one woman slow down and then continue driving. And I'm sorry, that woman must have read Gavin de Becker's The Gift of Fear, because
I agree.
So IRL after this incident in real life, or IRL after this one incident where he was beaten up and shamed by the Halfcocks, he moved to Chicago to become Buford the Bull rather than immediately stand up for what's right. But that would have been really complicated to get into that, so they didn't. They just go right to the part where he's inspired to become a sheriff. So we cut to his house for the first of more than one time that we see a bunch of people waiting around while Buford gets ministered to by the doctor who makes house calls. And we meet Deputy Bruce Glover, and we find out that Pauline says something like 3 years in the Marine Corps. No, it was 3 months. 5 years in the ring. And then the doctor, and we come back here for him to almost die. And the doctor says, a normal man wouldn't have made it through. Which, okay, stop it, movie. And the station wagon is somewhere. And fortunately, he has another shirt, exactly like the shirt that got cut up at the bar.
Why does he keep buying the same shirt?
I guess, like, if you know what you like.
But nobody else in this town has that shirt.
Well, there's another reason to own that shirt. It makes you special.
How does he keep replenishing? I guess he starts ordering it from mail order catalogs, although I can't really tell how much time is passing.
Yeah, I'm sure there's like a Sears catalog that he orders them from in bulk. He's recuperating in the garden, and the sheriff is like, well, no one's going to back up your story. You know, and he's like, Loogie will do it. Bruce Glover's like, sorry, them's the breaks. And Joe Don yells after him, I always thought you walked tall, which I'm like, he did? Okay.
But this is a moment that happens in all, like, artlessly made movies where you're conscious that they're saying the thing that leads to the title of the picture now.
And now he's working at the lumber mill, and this is just a font of inefficiency. We see like a truck show up, and it's being driven by his black friend, Obra.
In terms of this lumber mill's inefficiency, I noted that like all of the this truck full of logs drives in, and all of the logs just fall out of the side of the truck. Like nobody unloads them. The side of the truck falls out and the logs just all roll down, I guess, for people to pick up.
Yeah, it's an interesting method of unloading.
It's unloading, but you've created more work for yourself in having to get them all up off the ground. And it doesn't seem like, I don't know if what happens here is intentional. I don't think for that matter.
It's really 50-50 on whether this is an actual technique or this was just the take and they were like, that'll do. We're not spending a lot of Bing Crosby's money to make this movie. And and I should mention here that Obra is based on, on a man who he did appoint the first Black deputy sheriff in the entire state of Tennessee. So there is a good chance that he's not deeply racist.
You're right. I just had the idea that he was because I had him confused with Bull Connor.
But also, though, I mean, honestly, the odds are very high. Like with the circumstances we're dealing with, like huge, massive bully in the South. Like, his dad is talking about Obra and basically like implies that he has, quote, the social disease of Black power. And then his dad says that he believes in equality, but I don't actually think he does with that attitude.
Yeah.
Buford's like, I don't care, we're hiring him. And then we see him sitting there and he's creating the stick that he will use. And this will shock you, but the stick was not actually a thing. I mean, it was sometimes. Sometimes it was a 2x4. Sometimes it was a whip. Usually just Buford showed up places with an object that he could use to beat people, but it wasn't always. So it wasn't one nobly carved stick. It was whatever item he could grab on his way out the door to beat people with. So cool. Yeah. And we see him, basically we see Jodan Baker decide like he's going to go get his revenge. And he's now wearing a blue version of the shirt. And he walks into this bar with his stick and he hits the first guy he sees in there so hard that like his head explodes. Like he's definitely going to die.
In real life.
This was not necessarily a crusade of righteousness, but, of revenge for that time he got left on the side of the road because he pitched a fit when he lost money gambling. He showed up at this bar the week after his wedding and nearly beat this guy to death with a fence post. Like, I don't like victim blaming, but I am going to say that Buford doesn't really take a lot of responsibility for the situation that he put himself in by gambling illegally at this establishment. And I don't think that it was right for him to show back up and beat someone half to death with a fence post. And in this scene, like, it's not only just the one guy, but it's several guys, and he's hitting everyone so hard. So bravo, Walk Tall. What a great message. Regardless of the righteousness of his cause, even in the context of this film, this is kind of over the top and messed up. And then the next day, unsurprisingly, he gets arrested while he's sitting in his yard in a loose-fitting red shirt, similar model to the one we've discussed.
It's the same shirt.
I think he's wearing the same pants through the entire movie. He's always got those brown slacks on, and they are slacks. They are not pants. They're slacks, and they too would melt. So he gets put on trial for this. It's like he's got like a Colonel Sanders energy.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And we see that everyone he has nearly beaten to death in these like comical casts. Like they are just like, one guy's like got both of his arms up in a cast and like.
Yeah, you see people in these bizarre casts where it makes everyone move like the Frankenstein monster. And I don't think these casts are based on medical advice or consultation.
Yeah, they don't seem like they would set bones very well. Again, I am not a doctor.
I am not a doctor either.
But, you know, like someone's like in an S shape and like someone else is like making like an F with like both their arms out. It's ridiculous. And it appears that Buford is going to be his own counsel, which is just a great idea because he's qualified.
Yeah, you should never represent yourself. Everybody knows this. Do not be your own lawyer. Do not be your own publicist.
What if your cause is righteous, though?
No,
not even if your cause is as righteous as you had to beat up a bunch of people because they beat you up for trying to pitch a fit at their gambling establishment.
You should never be your own lawyer.
Okay. Fair enough. The jury is all white men, of course. And
when
also
were
like
women allowed to serve on juries in Tennessee?
Probably in like 1997.
Okay, that's not fair.
No, I don't know. But I would also say like this jury situation is super sus because if it's all people from the town, like how are you getting a fair jury? It seems like you're walking into a like a nearly like professional jury type of situation where everyone's like sort of like always serving on the jury and can be on the take really easily. But nevertheless, just before the trial starts, Buford's dad comes up and stage whispers to him that they just found Luby at the bottom of the river. And this is kind of Buford's fault.
Yeah, because he didn't take responsibility for being in a gambling establishment in the first place. Like, he could have just walked out of there.
Well, and he decided to take on Lugy's battle for him, which he didn't want to take on because he's an inveterate scumbag gambler. And Buford was going to rescue him from this by being like, no, you give him his money back. And he didn't want to make a big thing out of that. And then he did. And now Buford is on trial and Lugy's dead. The whole town is here to watch the trial, which is not a great scene. And Buford is testifying to the jury, kind of questioning himself. It's wild. And he is, for dramatic effect, takes his shirt off to show them all that he has been cut up a million times. And he's wearing like a tank top made out of like spirit gum.
Yes, that is what this looks like. It's like a tank top made of fake rubbery tissue.
It's unpleasant to look at. And he's like, look what they did to me. And
again, none of this stuff will fly at Georgetown.
Well, and also just like, you know, I mean, basically like he's asking them to come up with whatever law it is that allowed him to go into that place with a giant stick of wood and beat people.
There is no law for that.
Because, you know, it's just, it's a real interesting ask, but nevertheless, the jury deliberates for 5 minutes and they took more time finding Emmett Till's murderers not guilty than they took to justify Buford's probable homicide and certainly aggravated assault of several individuals. And he gets away with it.
Of course he does.
In real life, when Buford beat up this man nearly to death, he was able to get away with it because he had a fake alibi set up. Heroic! Yay, walking tall. Next, Ober's like, you should run for sheriff. Pauline's like, please don't do this. And he's like, no, I'm walking tall. I'm not backing down. You have no idea what I am made of. And I'm gonna later murder you and pretend that the Dixie Mafia did it. So we see like a kind of a humorous scene of sorts where there's sort of like a poster off happening. Like it's like Tracy Flick in Election almost, where like Buford's putting up posters in the bar and then the redheaded sheriff is coming around and ripping them down with Bruce Glover standing behind him. Not Bruce. Yeah.
We should give a mention here to Bruce Glover. I guess it made me happy to see his face in this movie because he looks like his son Crispin Glover, and that made me think of Back to the Future, which is a much better film than this.
Oh, indeed. Although his body confused me quite a bit.
Well, yeah, because you see his face. You see his face and you expect Crispin, but he's much bulkier.
But he's got like a shorter torso, and so it's like he's kind of shaped like a bit of like a Dick Tracy doll. And then we come upon one of the most disturbing songs I've ever encountered, ever, while this poster off is going on.
Yes.
And I'm going to try and set the scene here, and because I am a hero, like Buford Pusser, I went back and I transcribed the lyrics to this song. But there is a beautiful Black woman singing on the stage while this is all happening, and she starts performing this song, and she's got a very nice voice. She's stunning. She doesn't belong in this town. She should go elsewhere. And the song is, I believe, called Punish Me. And Rena, I need to stop talking, so I need you to read these lyrics. If you need me to take over at any point, I am here.
Punish me. Make me feel the pain, so I'll know not to ever do you wrong again. Come on, punish me. Make me crawl back to your world, but don't go find another girl. Oh, baby, I just couldn't stand it now. Take my life into your hands. Come on, punish me. Don't take your love away, because I couldn't make it another single day. Come on, punish me. Make me crawl back to your world, but don't go and find another girl. Oh, baby, do what you want with me. Don't know what happened. Must have gone insane. Since you caught me, feel so ashamed. I never thought I'd see the day I'd be down on my knees, begging you, baby, begging you, please, baby, please, won't you punish me? Just take out your revenge, so I'll know not to ever do you wrong again. Come on, punish me, make me crawl back to your world, but don't go and find the girl.
Dude, so fucked up.
Yes. How did I do there?
Great. You did great. You held it together. You gave it the gravitas it doesn't deserve. Listen, I'm a child of the 90s. I grew up with the East Coast, West Coast rap wars. Like, I have heard some misogynist things in my day. I don't know that I've ever heard something as misogynist as this song. I can't find its existence anywhere outside of this film. Like, I Shazammed it several times and I didn't find it. I searched the lyrics on the internet, like I put in like chunks of them. If you weren't there to watch the movie with me, I don't know that I would believe that song was real. It's so awful.
But you've seen this movie before. Had you never noticed it before? Or
I never clocked it in the same way as I was when we were watching it, and I was like, Jesus Christ.
I noticed song lyrics.
I was also, to be fair, taken by the super fun shenanigans of the poster putting up and ripping down. So that could be why. And also just like being like, what is happening with Bruce Glover's body? What is happening here? Why does he have, where do the lungs go when you have no torso? So this is followed by a car chase where the sheriff is so pissed off at Buford and his signposting ability that they chase him to a crappy looking occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge kind of bridge. And through, again, a series of events, the sheriff's car goes off the bridge and explodes in midair and then crashes into the river. And the sheriff is quite dead, but Bruce Glover is rescued and stares up at Joe Don Baker, Buford Pusser, with a new admiration. So the sheriff running against Buford Pusser for sheriff, the incumbent sheriff, did die mid-campaign.
So it's not, he wasn't running against anyone, is what you're saying.
Ultimately, yes, it became just Buford running against a corpse, and he won. John Ashcroft cannot make the same brag. So
No, and I still remember this quite vividly. It's possibly my favorite New York Times lead of all time. Missourians elected a dead man to the Senate yesterday when Mel Carnahan died during the election, and they voted for Mel Carnahan over John Ashcroft. But it turned out fine for John Ashcroft. He became George W. Bush's attorney general and wrote the song "Let the Eagle
let the
Soar."
eagle soar.
Soar like she's never soared before.
Remember when that was the worst thing that ever happened to us? Those were the days.
This country's far too young to die. She's got a lot of soaring left to do. I can't believe I remember the lyrics to So Sarah.
I remember the way the song went. It was like, let the eagle soar. Higher than she's ever soared before. Something, yeah.
Yeah.
And he sang it with all of like the passion and bravado of like a Baptist cantor. So good stuff. Then Buford wins the election. Everyone in town shows up at his house while he's like hanging out in a bathrobe, and that's a choice.
I think all his versions of the shirt were probably, they had too much blood on them. Yeah.
So another IRL note here. His dad encouraged him to get this job and he was given it. And one of the reasons why his dad wanted him to get this job is because you may be able to dope out that if you are in a small town that has a massive black market of activity, there is probably also very little oversight. So you could get a lot of money being sheriff because nobody's paying attention. And maybe your motivation to clean up the town would be around not necessarily making things better for everyone, but to edge out any competition. So just some wild speculating there. In real life, also, Buford was the youngest sheriff in the history of Tennessee at the time. He was 26. He's also, in theory, should be a little young for this relaxed fit wardrobe. But here we go into his first day on the job, for which he has absolutely no training and no schooling. And he's wearing his yellow version of the shirt with the same slacks.
He never puts on the sheriff uniform. It drove me nuts.
So I looked into this, and he did apparently, according to an angry commenter on Reddit, wear the sheriff uniform before he got shot. But then he started wearing a suit and a tie. Another thing we never see him in this movie. But
no,
he looks like he's maybe like undercover as a wino.
So did he always, I mean, is this shirt an accurate copy of a shirt that Buford Pusser happened to own like 12 of, or it's just the wardrobe department doing what ifs?
I'm going to say maybe, because I don't know. It's either like, I mean, if this wardrobe is, you know, overall part of the same care and consideration they took into adapting the reality of Buford Pusser's story, then I mean, it's anybody's guess. Whether it's that or Joe Don Baker was like, this is what I want to wear. And they were like, fucking fine. I don't want to fight you on this. We don't have time. I'm just assuming that he had to special order his relaxed fit uniform. First day on the job, no training, no understanding of how the law works, no understanding of what it means to be a sheriff. He goes in and finds out that a bunch of black people have been poisoned to death by alcohol that they bought from one of these sketchy stills. So, you know, like basically like Buford's mandate in theory was like to go on this spree of arresting and breaking up rackets. And he would invite the media like your Christy Gnomes or your Joe's Arpaio. We see that, yeah, like Bruce Glover is completely drinking the Flavor Aid around Buford Pusser. And he's probably based on a dude named Petey Plunk, who will come up in this story later. Buford also makes the move of shaming Oprah into joining the police, which is a choice. And yet no one is qualified for the jobs that they have.
Just the lack of respect and admiration for expertise here really fills me with disgust
very
at the
American.
universe.
We have just a proud history of choosing people to run stuff who are absolutely and utterly unqualified to do it. So Oprah comes with him to break up a still, and he's tasting the alcohol and spitting it out. And he's like, oh, it's all awful. And then he arrests everyone there with the help of Oprah, and he brings them in front of the judge. And he has, because, as I said, no training in law enforcement, completely failed to do things like reading them their Miranda rights, and having a warrant. So they all get released. Then there's this man named Wheeler who will show up in the second film, who wants to chat with him and is from the big city and is involved in all of this crime, and he wants Buford to not walk tall but to be a scumbag.
This is the actor who we said had a very upsetting face.
Oh my god, this man's face was so upsetting. He looked kind of like a Cabbage Patch doll.
Yes, and he had these pale, piercing blue eyes, but there was something about the nature of them that it looked like he had no pupil.
And no chin either. He looked kind of like a Cabbage Patch doll, kind of like Bob's Big Boy Made Human.
His blazers were very ugly too, like his whole blazer pants combo.
Oh, we do not match in this movie. There's not enough time in the filming schedule to match. And then we cut over to Oprah is in the black criminal bar, and a bunch of white guys come in and start harassing him while he's there watching that singer sing a less offensive song this time. Not that you can top Punish Me.
She doesn't say what she's being punished for. It's like she should be punished because he thinks she should. Did you note the lyrics to the less upsetting song?
I did not. I also did try and Shazam the song that she was singing during the scene, and it also didn't come up. Oprah goes out to his sheriff's vehicle and calls Buford, and he has, I think, my favorite line in the movie. Oprah's like, I need your help, Buford, because there's a bunch of white men out here. And Buford says into the radio, no, you pick him up. I haven't eaten yet. Like, the commitment to the job.
He's not backing up his friend. He is not being supportive.
He's being a terrible sheriff. And is like, I walked tall. Like, some people come over and shake his hand. You see like the transference of like being decent in this movie. Oprah's like sold on it. And they bring him in front of the judge, and the judge is like, you can pay $10 fine or spend 10 nights in jail. The man ends up apologizing to Oprah and pays for his replacement shirt. And everybody in town is being infected by respectability because of one man's bold stance with a 2x4 and beating a man to death. He's walking around with hitting people in the head. The idea that everyone is all of a sudden like decent humans because a man did that is really weird.
Yeah, and if this were to happen today, the guy beating people up with bats would get an endorsement deal with some company that makes bats.
He would be speaking at Turning Point conferences. Are you kidding me? If Buford Pusser were alive today, absolutely. Especially because he murdered his own wife. He would be on the stage at the RNC. He's back in his yellow shirt. And angry as hell.
It's like he pulls it on over his head, but he still has to button it. This shirt is so dumb. And he has so many of it.
Let's be real. Do we think those buttons are vanity buttons, or do we think that they actually unbutton?
The thing is,
we think it's just like a stretchy.
It's clear. It looks like a broadcloth. It's not a knit, and I'm not sure what the current state of Lycra is. So he has to have some way of spreading the top of the shirt apart in order to pull it over his arms, since he can't unbutton it from the bottom. It has to go over his head, and he needs for it to have more space at the top. The buttons are spaced quite far apart. Like, that shirt would probably have gapes in it, which I didn't clock, but I wasn't looking for it.
Those buttons are made for the big and husky man, like, paws.
Yeah, well, I'm wondering, Sarah, what inspired Bing Crosby to choose this script?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer. We could speculate wildly about how much Bing Crosby likes a guy that everyone thinks is a hero but is secretly a bastard. I guess it was an opportunity to bring Johnny Mathis in to sing a song. I don't know. I'm guessing that he was like, I can throw a tiny bit of money at this and make a ton of money. But yeah, no idea. So apparently Buford was also up all night reading because he's pissed off at the judge, and he moved all of his stuff around into the basement of the courthouse in the bathroom because he's pissed off that the judge is all about technicalities like the Bill of Rights.
Like, why spend 3 years getting a JD when you could just read in the bathroom all night?
So I have not cracked a book on criminal code, but I'm going to guess it's not something you can just understand.
No, there's a lot of context. The language is dense.
I would imagine that it's not something you can just figure out with a Buford Pusser level education.
Oh, Sarah, you're how un-American of you to assume that expertise in studying and having respect for education play any role in accomplishment in a just world.
And really, you just pick out the law that lets you punk the judge and put all of his stuff in the men's room.
Yeah.
So we see that he's trying to make like a bunch of arrests, but one of the members of the police force leaks it to all of the evil bar owners, and so they manage to not catch anyone. Then so Buford's like, the fix is in here, and he's driving home, and for the second and not last time in this movie, he is grievously injured and left for dead by the side of the road when he gets shot driving home because the Dixie Mafia has come for him again.
Did this actually happen?
He was supposedly attacked at some point, yes. I'm saying supposedly because, like, honestly, who really knows? So for the second time, the doctor comes by and fixes him up. His wife is covered in blood in her beautiful white shirt dress. He's so pissed off that this has happened, and everyone from the Dixie Mafia is sending him like gifts, like alcohol, flowers, and he's all worked up about it and sitting in the house and being mad. And what's fun here, of course, is that he was actually always on the take and a crooked cop the entire time he was in office, as we discussed.
He was.
And then he decides to restage the raid, and it works this time, but he does figure out that one of the guys in his group was on the take and like almost kills him, but then just fires him. Yeah.
I thought that guy looked kind of dead.
He looked emotionally dead. He could have also been dead. Buford Pusser was not above murdering people. So the woman who's pissed off about who was running her bars at the State Line Mafias, all of their bars, like, she's really pissed off, and she decides to hire a guy to come and try and kill Buford. And get revenge on him for arresting everybody. Then it's just a normal night at home, and all of a sudden someone's shooting into his house, and he chases that man off his property and shoots him in the back on his property. So he's in charge of the town, though, so he doesn't have to answer to anybody on this. At this point, it's very clear he is just a policing enthusiast. He is in no way qualified to be a police officer, and he is killing people on his property, and he is covered in sweat. This man also shoots his dog, and he carries the dog inside as it's bleeding out, and the children are screaming. And it wasn't like the best choice as a parent to do that, but,
So what I'm wondering about is, like, what if someone were, like, an admirer of doctors and somehow got elected chief of surgery, but had no medical training.
Like, what happens if someone just thinks they understand what it means to be a doctor and a scientist? We're seeing this on the highest levels of our government right now. Basically, like, we are Buford Pussers all the way down running the United States government right now. It's just people who think that they'd be good at something and have the confidence to say that they are. Anyway, that's depressing. And suddenly it's Christmas. The kids get a new puppy. That's cute, right?
Yeah, it's like he replaces it with the same kind of dog. He doesn't. And you know what? I'll let it ride. There are people who always like a certain kind of dog and keep getting that kind of dog. I'm not going to bug him for that one. That's just nitpicking someone else's parenting.
Of all the offenses he commits, that one's a lesser.
He gets his kid a new puppy who will remind them of the dog that they loved. It's okay. I am just being cruel here.
No, he deserves it. We'll get there. So he gets a call to go to the ladies' bar. And he walks in and she's basically staged a setup to shoot him. She's got a gun under a fur coat, and he walks in and she immediately fires on him with a shotgun.
I just wanted to, like, this woman, she has some wardrobe changes that are sort of interesting, but she's one of the women in this movie. Their hair looks fried, except for the one with the very perky B cups in the nylon stocking. No woman who is not employed in these bars in this town is allowed to wear makeup. But I didn't get to mention this before. Like, the hair choices, these women are wearing wigs that they all look like versions of that wig in The French Connection that they hide stuff in.
Yes, everyone looks like they're at the hostess party in Goodfellas.
Back to setting the scene around this gun
Okay, so
scene.
she's gonna shoot him. She's got her gun under her fur coat. He walks in. It's a shotgun. We see, like, the shotgun blasts, like, go into the wall. And
well, this confused me because she shoots. I feel like there are 5 big holes in the wall for every bullet that she shoots. And you see that wall looks fairly wrecked. And I know they're using just the cruddiest imitation drywall they could find to build the sets here, but I didn't understand how so many bullet holes could result from like 1/5 the number of bullets fired as there are holes in this wall in the moment before Buford shoots her in the face.
I know about as much about guns as I do about lawyering. Shotgun cartridges, when they shoot, sometimes some kinds of the cartridges have almost like pellets in them and they scatter.
But would that happen with every bullet you shot?
Well, if it's the kind of bullet that you're using in your gun, then yes.
Okay, so I'll let it ride, like, because I know nothing about guns, because I'm not a real American.
I think you could also argue with how I just described that. I too know nothing about guns, which I do not. That was about it right there. And misses.
I would happily trade the Second Amendment for your body is not an incubator.
Oh, yeah.
So clearly I'm not a real American.
No, we're both terrible Americans. So Buford does not get hit by any of these shots, and he responds by shooting her twice in the face, which is the first time, but not the last, we're going to see a woman get shot in the face in this movie.
Oh, but now it makes sense why they'd shoot his wife in the face.
Why? Because it's the way?
Because it's how this other woman who they all looked up to died.
It's like foreshadowing?
More like it's like revenge. Although, you know what? They're just shooting. I don't think this movie understands foreshadowing. I think because the only cases would be that and the thing about white lightning and gasoline. I don't think any of this is intentional.
No,
I think we're ascribing. I think that if we say the word foreshadowing about any decisions, we're ascribing more thoughtfulness to this movie than it deserves.
Yes. So there's another side to this story. Of course, this is, based on a real woman, Louise Hathcock, who was a big badass woman in the Dixie Mafia and was running an empire after she killed her husband.
Okay, so she's actually interesting. I want a woman about this movie where Buford Pusser is the bad guy.
I would watch that movie. And I want to be clear that none of these people he's going after seem like they're very good people. But the fact that he's the hero when he's just a scumbag in addition to or as opposed to any of these individuals is the problem. But like, yeah, these were all criminals. But she died with 3 gunshot wounds, 2 in the back.
So
and
he
one
doesn't
in the
just
head.
show up by himself to take...
He showed up for a raid and claimed that she shot at him first. However, you think about, like, here's something, again, not a doctor, not a gun enthusiast, but if you get shot in the head, you're probably not following that with 2 shots in the back. The shots in the back probably came first, and then the shot in the head probably came at like a point blank range. So one might suggest that she was shot at and then murdered. But we don't want to make anybody uncomfortable because Buford Pusser, the legend, lives in their minds.
Heavens, no.
As I mentioned, Buford was on the take. The law enforcement industrial complex in this town was demanding hush money from these organizations in order for them to stay open because it was a dry county. That was part of it. And then the laws started changing, including like Mississippi made it legal for you to buy hard alcohol. So these state line places were starting to lose money, like, and lose allure because who needs to go to them? If you can just drink hard alcohol by yourself in your house without having to go gamble at one of these places or catch the clap from a woman who has a trailer in the parking lot. And apparently, like, Louise and Buford exchanged words when he tried to raise the vig, and she threatened him with the guy from Tennessee who he just killed in his yard. And then he went and raided there and had to kill her by shooting her in the back.
Yeah, and I guess I had some notes in here that I kind of brushed over while I was listening. That I loved this line about well, I love that there is a table flip in here around the time of the second attack, which you always see in these movies. And there's a line about smoking their cigarettes, sipping their whiskey, smelling their flowers. I also noted that he doesn't have a warrant and was wondering if the town had a new judge yet, but, like, why bother? And I noted that one of the guys that they're kicking out of the trailer he's putting on a shirt in a kind of minty cyan color that matches the trailer. I know it was unintentional, but I did appreciate this.
I'm sure it was unintentional, but I, too, appreciated.
I didn't realize that it was Christmas, but we have no sense of how time passes.
Time passing in this movie is kind of a trash fire. I'm glad you mentioned those things because I did gloss over, and it's better to talk about them. Where did I just lost my notes. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I mean, I have just been surviving this episode.
I know how upsetting this is.
And
so he murders her in cold blood, and probably just because he wanted to, and no one investigated it.
Of course not.
So everything's great again. Everything's peaceful.
Buford takes his wife and his children on a fishing trip, and they exchange one of the least sexy kisses I've ever seen.
Yeah. He gets a call the next morning to go investigate something, and she's like, I want to ride along with you. And so she does.
And she really shouldn't. Of course, the moment that she becomes supportive, she's about to die.
Yes. So they're driving along, and all of a sudden, car comes up and shoots into their car and shoots her right in the head. And we see skull and viscera, and it's disgusting and completely unnecessary.
It's disgusting, and we see him, like, trying to push the brains back into her head. but it's like they're just oozing out of the forehead in a way that doesn't really make sense. It looks like how you squeeze toothpaste out of a tube, not like there's been like a crack. But hey, I don't have a medical license and he's not a real cop, so who am I to judge?
Who are we to judge any of this, right? We're fine to judge this. It's awful. And then as he's doing this, the car swings back around and shoots him a bunch of times. And he's able to radio for help. And Oprah and Bruce Glover show up and they're like, oh my God. And they put a filthy blanket over Pauline, which assures that no evidence will be properly preserved on the scene.
Did you learn that in your fancy mock trial?
I did. I also learned that by watching the O.J. Simpson trial when I was a kid. They both look horrified and sad as they wait for the ambulance to come yet again for the third time that Buford Pusser is left on the side of the road for dead. Denied 3 times, like Peter with Jesus. Anyway. So the story that we see here is probably bullshit.
No.
And I say probably, I know, because a lot of people aren't still alive, but the forensics and the criminal science do not shore up Buford Pusser's tale of what happened here. So Buford,
do you know what we skipped out?
What?
His little scene in the car with the one attractive sex worker in the town.
Oh, we did skip that. You know he had sex with sex workers, right?
I didn't know that, but I'm not surprised.
I mean,
not that there's anything wrong with that.
There's not anything wrong with that as long as you are fairly exchanging, the price for goods and services. However, there is something wrong with pretending you're above that in a movie and showing it that way and then presenting that as truth.
Oh, yeah.
He cheated on his wife all the time.
Of course he did.
So Buford did get shot in the face twice, and his jaw was supposedly hanging on, which froze. However, the shooter was probably Buford Pusser himself, and his wife was very likely shot in his home and then brought out to the crime scene where he staged it to look as if they had been set upon by vengeful members of the Dixie Mafia. A couple of things here. Cops don't generally take their wives on disturbance calls. That is frowned upon behavior and also incredibly dangerous. He also, the story of the route that he took to be where he was when he got shot wouldn't have made sense to where he was going in terms of how much longer it would have taken him to get to a place. The place where the Dixie Mafia was lying in wait was peculiar, and like where the shooting took place after where they would have seen him and chased after him didn't work out in terms of timing. Like people have driven the route and done that. The TLDR is the math didn't math, and his story, like Pauline and like Buford's face, is full of holes. And I'll see you in hell. So because of some of these inconsistencies, and like whispers of them, and people like Mike Elam going after this story and dissecting it and making a push, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations reopened this case and exhumed Pauline in 2024 because no one ever did an autopsy on her. Imagine that. So a couple of things that came out in time. Their marriage was not a happy one. When they exhumed her body, they found injuries on her remains consistent with domestic violence, including a very recently broken nose. In addition to the gunshot wounds, she had recently moved out, and a friend who she was close with dropped her off at her house to go get things and get her kids because she was planning to leave and move back in with her parents in Virginia. This woman, LaVon, didn't want to go into the house with her because she was so terrified of Buford. LaVon's last name was Plunk. Her husband was Petey Plunk. So she was going to wait down the street in her car, and when Pauline flashed the lights on their porch, she was going to go pick her up. But instead, she heard a gunshot come from the house. Now, it's all like, well, why didn't she call anyone? Because she couldn't call the police. Buford's dad was running the police radio that night. Buford Pusser was the sheriff. Her husband, Petey, was a cop. So she was put in an impossible position where she did nothing. And the next day, her husband came home and told her that Pauline had been murdered in an ambush intended for Buford by the Dixie Mafia.
Mm-hmm.
So Mike interviewed this woman, and a better journalist than most of our present journalists, he went out to find backup for this story and interviewed more people, including Buford's daughters. All of his children have passed, but one of his daughter's best friends shared the story about how his daughter saw Buford put the dead body in the car that night and was terrified that she would be next. Mike found that Buford had many affairs during the marriage, one with a high school age girl that he wanted to make official. And
she was only 16. Only 15.
She's 15.
You're beautiful. And you're mine.
And as I mentioned, Buford was directly involved with the corruption that he was pretending to fight. So he basically, he killed Pauline because he had to protect his image, and she was an extension of his property. So he had the right to do that so he could move on. Great guy. There was always buzz that he had probably killed her, but also people were like, the injuries he got were so gross. How is that possible? But as the Behind the Bastards guides point out, remember, he was a professional wrestler, so they know how to exaggerate an injury. He also had damaged nerves in his face, apparently, that would have made it very easy for him to injure his face without a lot of pain. So they performed the autopsy. They announced on August 29th, 2025, that were Buford Pusser alive, there would be probable cause to charge him with the death of his wife. Her wounds were not consistent with his story, but were consistent with having been shot at close range. They talked about the broken nose. The blood in Buford's car also contradicted his narrative, and that Pusser's own wound was likely self-inflicted. At the time, though, Buford blamed several members of the Dixie Mafia, and 4 of them died under mysterious circumstances involving bullets over the next few years, which isn't really mysterious. The story goes that Buford was connected with all of these, and the sequel films follow up on these stories. And we end with the funeral, where Buford shows up sweaty, wearing one of his shirts, in a cast. This cast is a nightmare. It's like a Hannibal Lecter kind of thing with a tiny little mouth slit.
He moves with like Boris Karloff with this thing on.
And he decides to drive back to the bar and kill the last member of the Dixie Mafia who is alive in the town for now with his car. And then Obra and Bruce Glover show up and kind of drag him away because he needs to go back to the hospital because he is wearing that face cast. And everyone else who was at the funeral shows up at that bar and starts dragging all the furniture out and breaking it into pieces in the parking lot. And then they drive away and they're all laughing because it's so fun. And that's the end of our movie. And then the Johnny Mathis song comes on and it wails. They all drive away smiling to the song and everybody's happy. Except everyone is not happy because now it's 2025. Been like, oopsie daisy, this is a murderer. And as I'm sure you can imagine, there are a lot of people who are very unhappy about Buford Pusser's legacy being destroyed. I mean, we have an entire town whose economy is built on that. like the man who runs the Buford Pusser Museum was interviewed on Going South, and he was like, let it lie, it's just going to hurt everyone, because Buford Pusser does have family that has remained alive. I have plenty to rant and rave about on this. I will try and distill it because we don't have time, but like, I'm sorry if it's gonna hurt you after building your entire personality around loving this man. I'm sorry, but like, the part of the patriarchy where we protect man babies from having to confront the complexity of real life is where I get the fuck off and say no. You know who else has feelings and probably deals with hurt is Pauline Pusser's family. It's all well and good to say, like, it's going to hurt people's feelings. But if you're going to be a man baby about your hero not being the awesomest person on earth, just own it and be like, you know what? It's going to hurt my feelings. And it's also going to be a pain in the ass to change all the signs around town and for me to find a new identity. And what you're really saying when you say, like, let it lie, it's just going to hurt everyone, is I don't feel like it. Because this woman's murder is meaningless compared to my own personal comfort. So this town, his town of Adamsville, that has built their entire existence around him, they had said that if the TBI finds that he killed his wife, which they did, as I mentioned, they will take his name off things. And I don't know where they are on that journey, but I confirm that the annual Buford Pusser Days Festival is still on for May 2026, as it has been for many years. So, Sic Semper Tyrannis, I guess, right? This is the most American story. Accolades. God.
What?
So, the film is recognized. It appears that Buford Pusser was nominated for the American Film Institute's list of 100 heroes and villains of film, but I don't think he was ranked. So there you go. So
thank God for small mercies.
And I guess I had a couple of pieces of choice dialogue that I thought were ironic rather than good.
Sure.
The judge says to him at one point, "Why, you self-appointed dictator, all you know is force and violence. You don't understand the simplest things about the law."
I agree with the judge.
Yeah. And then Buford says, after arguing with the sheriff, "There it is again." And Pauline says, "What?" And he says, "The system. You got to live my way or you don't live."
This is just not an attitude that should be adulated anywhere.
Yep. And then Pauline at one point says, "I'm proud of you, Buford, and I'm not so scared anymore." There's tons of ironic dialogue, but those were the three that I just pulled out. And also, of course, I haven't eaten yet. Should we do scoring?
Sarah, can you please give our listeners a quick refresher about how we score movies?
Yeah. We rate movies on a 1 to 10 scale across 10 areas that we find to be subjectively and or objectively important in most films, but specially tailored to specific issues in biopics. If you want more details on how we score movies, please scroll down our webpage at biopicapodcaststory.podbean.com. You'll also find a record of our scores for past episodes. And with that out of the way, let's score this thing. Rena, would you like to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. For outward appearances, makeup, and hair, I gave it a 1 because everything was so ugly. For acting and casting, I gave it a 2, with 2 points going to Oprah and the actress who was stuck playing Buford's wife. For passage of time, I gave it a 3, and I don't understand why I scored it so highly. For costuming, I gave it a 3. Again, I was being nice. This movie wasn't required to do any of the things that impress me anyway. For quality of the script, I gave it a 2. For accuracy, I gave it a 1 because people with these names existed. For storytelling, I gave it a 2. For production value, I gave it a 1. For production direction decision-making, I gave it a 0. And for do we care, I gave it a 0. My average came to 1.5, and I feel like that was too high. I couldn't make up my mind whether to use the buy or not.
The damage is done in terms of your score, so... I made a couple of baffling choices in my scoring also. So outward appearances 2, acting and casting 3, all entirely for Elizabeth Hartman. Passage of time 1, costuming 2, again, Elizabeth Hartman. Quality of the script 2, again, seems very high. Accuracy 1, storytelling 1, production value 5.
What?
I guess I know. I'm guessing that I am giving credit for the very real look of the bars in terms of them looking really shitty.
I feel like those bars look shittier than real shitty bars.
Yeah, listen, I don't understand myself right now. Don't worry, it all comes out okay. Production, direction, decision making, a 5. Again, I don't know why. Do we care? I give it a 2 only because I care about the true crime that ultimately has been revealed to us. Came to a 2.4, and I'm going to use my buy because I'm a little
Thank you.
upset about like those 2 5s in there. Like, what was I like feeling bad for?
I don't know, but I'm so glad you used the buy because I had already said I wasn't going to use mine, and there was no fixing that if you hadn't. So this movie gets a 1.45, the same score we gave to both The Conqueror and Tennessee Johnson.
Yep.
And, well, with that, Walking Tall, you have earned a second opinion. 1.45.
It is time now for Second Opinion, the element we stole from How Did This Get Made?
The prize for scoring above an 8 or below a 4 is that you get to hear us make fun of IMDb reviewers who disagreed with our assessment of the film.
Rena, would you like to go first?
10 out of 10. Written by M.A.C. Hammer. I hope she didn't use her full name and middle initial. On January 8th of 2023. 10 out of 10, one-word title. True. One of the most fascinating people in small-town America. This movie, I was a wee pint when it came out and later saw it, and was enamored ever since. Some of the truth was dramatized, and a lot of the truth was not shown to protect the innocent. There's 3 Walking Tall movies, and the real Buford Pusser was on set to be a consultant at the right hand of the director and screenwriter. Actually, Buford was to star in part 3, but was killed by the Dixie Mafia during filming. Now that's what I call true story. Not the actual movie, but around the same time. It hasn't aged well, but for a 70s B film, it took the nation by storm. A cult favorite that was raw and true. Not just based on a true story, but the actual events told by the man himself. I've never forgotten this movie, though I was a kid. I now have the whole set. Walk tall and carry a big stick. Fascinating story. 2 people found this helpful. Well, Sarah, you have found a comrade in arms. You also...
Fellow box set owner.
Yes.
Like, you're wrong. Like, literally wrong about it being true about how he died.
Oh, I agree. Do you have one you'd like to share with us?
So from GOWBTW 5-star reviewer on June 8th, 2025. 10 out of 10. Standing tall as you walk tall. Saw parts of it as a kid. Joe Don Baker play the part of Buford Pusser. His character puts Teddy Roosevelt to shame. Excuse me. I did not intentionally choose that. I'm sorry. No. To me, he was a force of justice. When the current sheriff was dirty, he took his place, hired an African American for deputy. He was just as good. Excuse me? Coming to his hometown, seeing the changes, why would you stand up to see justice is done? I don't understand that sentence, and I just read it exactly as it appears. The deputy he appointed felt the pain of Pusser's wife being slain. He took it hard. He was a good teammate for the law enforcement, rooting out the bad apples. I don't care about the critics. The movie is a fictional account of the life of Sheriff Buford Pusser. He's an honorable figure of law enforcement. 5 stars. No, he's not. Also, investigations were underway at this point.
I think there were a rush of people going to give this movie high reviews as the investigations began.
Yes, it's not great. Okay, do you want to read it one more?
All right, this one, 10 out of 10. Joe Don Baker in Walking Tall. There is a spoiler notification, and this review was written by J. Caraway 3 on September 24th of 2009. Joe Don Baker is my favorite actor. No, I'm really serious. And this is hands down his greatest film, at least out of all the films I've seen him in. The film is basically about a war between Buford Pusser, who was a real person, by the way, and the scum of a small town. Someone will kill a friend or family member of Pusser, and Pusser will kill 1 or 2 of the bad guys at a time. It's a shame Joe Don couldn't be in the sequels, remake, or TV show. I've heard pretty bad things about all of those, so I think I'll stay away from them. The ending is somewhat anticlimactic, but somehow effective. Definitely check this film out if you like Joe Don Baker and or action flicks. 1 out of 2 people found this review helpful. I didn't know there was a TV series. I must have...
There was, yes. So someone in these questions poses the ask about why Joe Don Baker did not appear in the sequels. And what I found is, so there was discussion about Buford Pusser playing himself, maybe, in the second movie, which I think is incredibly weird, and I hope they weren't actually thinking about doing that. Because that's insane.
Yeah.
So he died on the way back from a meeting with Bing Crosby Productions, I guess. And Joe Don Baker he got very close to Buford Pusser while making the movie, and he did not want to play the role after he died. He was too broken up about it or something. So they brought on Bo Svensson, who's a guy who's been in a bunch of stuff also. So, yeah, that's, I guess, the story of that. Anyway, stuff you should watch instead.
Oh, well, there is an amazing series on Netflix starring Nick Offerman as not Teddy Roosevelt, but Chester Alan Arthur, and Michael Shannon as President James Garfield, and Matthew McFadden as Charles Guiteau, called Death by Lightning, and it's amazing. I loved the first 2 episodes. I don't know if I'll be able to bring myself to watch the second half because Garfield seems so lovely and I don't want to see him die, but it's wonderful. I'd also like to recommend all 7 novels by the Bronte sisters over this film. People say Anne is an also-ran, but I find her much more relatable than Emily, and I think Anne was the best realist, and if she had lived longer and managed to write a 3rd or 4th book, I think she could have stood up beside Charlotte. And Scott Fitzgerald wrote some novels too. I would recommend reading an actual book. Just don't watch this movie.
It's kind of amazing that it exists, but counter to that, if you're gonna watch this, cleanse your karma, and you can watch The Rock's Walking Tall. He probably fights North Koreans or Al Qaeda in it.
I will never watch any version of or sequel to Walking Tall again for the rest of my life.
I can firmly recommend, though. I have very much enjoyed watching Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein in the last week on Netflix. It's quite good, and I've been thinking a lot about all of the things that it is about over the past several days and haven't been able to get it out of my head. I still reading The Power Broker. but I have taken a break to also read the collected short stories of Shirley Jackson, which I haven't read in many, many, many years. She's quite the writer, that Shirley Jackson. She's quite good at this whole thing that she's been doing.
Oh, you know some movies that you should watch instead of Walking Tall? Casablanca, Fargo, and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Those are all good movies.
Yes.
Also, like the Going South podcast series is outstanding. I cannot recommend it enough, and really gets into this story and many others about Southern crime and the Dixie Mafia. And then also Behind the Bastards is always worth a shout out as well. And their Buford Pusser series was very entertaining and really helpful in this, as Robert Evans's journalism and research often is. Do we have anything to apologize for this week?
No.
Good.
So, Sarah, can you please take us out?
Yeah. So first, I would very much like to thank Dan for recommending that we watch this movie. It's been a real treat to dig into this world, but also really kind of get behind the true story of it. But also, our podcast baby has matured, and we have launched a Patreon simply in effort to defray some of the costs associated with bringing our show to you. Platform hosting, recording, equipment costs, research. Occasionally, we have to order a book off the internet. We sometimes pay for movie rentals, and sometimes we may want to see a movie in theaters, or we may pay for public transportation so we can record together in person. For any Patreon pledges, we are offering shout outs and access to our awful first 3 episodes to anyone who chips in. With that, we'd love to thank Brandon and Gates, who signed up already. Thank you, Brandon and Gates.
Thank you, Brandon and Gates.
If you like the show, please leave us a 5-star rating and subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and tell a friend, or better yet, plural friends, and share us on social media. We hear it helps. You can follow us on Threads, Blue Sky, and Instagram, where we have visual aids from our episodes. Our Instagram handle is at Biopic a Podcast Story, so do check us out there, and we'll link to that in the show notes as well. Please also check out our webpage at biopicapodcaststory.podbean.com to see the official episode ratings for all of the movies that we've done so far. And if you'd like to get in touch, you can email us at biopiclistenermailbag@gmail.com. Our theme music is by Ben Patch. The intro is his song, Slater Cannonball, and the outro is Spring Breakers. And you can check him out on Spotify.
Tune in next week when we'll be talking about Temple Grandin, starring Claire Danes as Temple Grandin.
I'm very excited to watch this.
I'm excited to watch a movie about a woman being exceptionally competent despite the odds, and she's not here to look pretty for you.
Does it end with her being burned at the stake?
No, she's not a witch, she's autistic.
So she's a witch. I'm joking. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, of course, because her parents gave her... She was born before the polio vaccine.
So how is she's...
I know. How did she get autistic?
Everybody knows it's from vaccines.
Good night to the earnest and the cynical.
Good night. Good night, Rena.
Good night, Sarah.